kick-ass switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you are watching another episode of Every Which Way. This time featuring... I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to make you guess. But I will give you a few clues. What do these books have in common? Cottage witchery, seasons of witchery, natural witchery, and the witch's tarot. Ellen Dugan, yes, Ellen Dugan is on the show today, and as you can probably tell from my book collection, I am a fan, and I know so many of you are too. So I'm super excited to get to share this interview with you today and talk about Ellen's new book, Prosperity Magic, that just came out, and you can order a copy of that right after you listen to this kick-ass interview with this kick-ass witch. I did not get to capture her on camera, which is kind of a shame because she has a really cute face, but she also has such a radiant, dynamic, wild, fun personality that you are going to get the full Ellen Dugan experience anyway. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hi, Ellen. Welcome to Every Which Way.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi. I am super excited to get to talk to you today about your new book, Practical Prosperity Magic. And I know that my people are too, because I posted about it on Facebook and got a lot of, oh my God, she's my favorite! Yay, my head just exploded! Amazing! Everybody loves you.
Well, that's good. That kind of makes all those days sitting in front of my computer in sweatpants, my hair in a ponytail, looking at my monitor going, why do I do this? That makes those days a little bit more worthwhile.
Yeah, well, you seem to crank it out pretty well. Like, I feel like you've released a book a year for the last decade. Is that right?
I stopped and added it up the other day. I have written 16 books in about 11 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
wow.
Actually 17, because I just finished a book with a friend of mine. We're doing an ebook together that we're going to release this summer, so... Yeah, that would make it 17, so, yeah.
Oh, how fun. What is that called? Are we going to be able to get that from your website?
Since I don't have it'll be on Amazon. It'll be a Kindle book. So it's one of those things where I don't have her go ahead to talk about it yet. But other than the fact that we are doing an ebook this summer, it's being edited now, and we hope to have it out by the end of summer, late August-ish, somewhere around in there. I would think it should be out by August.
So fun. I read, I think last fall, when you passed your 10-year anniversary of your first book, maybe with Llewellyn.
Right. Yeah, Garden Witchery, right.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then now you have Practical Prosperity Magic, which I just realized in the introduction I shot for this, I said just Prosperity Magic. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that's interesting, because I feel like a lot of people would think the word practical and the word magic maybe don't go together, although from reading your books, I know that you are a very practical witch. What would you say to that? Because both are in your title. Magic be practical?
The idea that magic can be practical came about because people need to understand that there's a lot of work involved in magic. The practical magic is basically thaumaturgy, which is, working with the elements, working with herbs, working with crystals, working with, colors and candles and things like that. And it is a very practical path. What most people don't understand is a lot of people get so wrapped up in the drama and the theater of the craft that they don't stop and remember that, for several thousand years, we didn't have any drama, we didn't have any theater. We just worked with what we had. People had to be practical, and it's important to get back to that.
Right. Yeah, and it's about making things happen in this reality and not just staying up in the fantasy land.
Right. Someone asked me, why did you write this book? I don't get it. And I said, well, honestly, this book came about because a couple of years ago my husband got laid off, and he's always worked in the automotive industry, and so he's, gone through layoffs and all those type of things before, and where plants had closed. And job within...
Oh, we're cutting out. Darn it. Are you still there? Hi!
Hello, I'm on my way to the spot where I know there's 5 bars. I've got 4 just driving there. So
Oh, okay. So should I give you a few more minutes?
No, you're fine. This is crazy. I have never in my life had to do a phone interview, getting in my car and driving someplace for better reception.
I love you so much.
This is the second day in a row I've had to do this.
Thank you so much. I love the idea of you kind of in your car driving around. Like, wait, it's so funny.
Because, it's all about the glamour.
It's such a glamorous life.
Yeah, that's my glamorous life. That's right.
You know what's funny is how people just absolutely adore you. And what you do in your books is you actually expose the not so glamorous part of your life. And we still, look up to you anyway. You always just kind of share it. You share it warts and all. And I think that's what makes you so relatable.
Well, I personally, nothing puts my teeth on edge quicker than the whole Grand High Poobah routine, the whole, oh, yes, darling, I'm the so-and-so of this many groups and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, seriously? Seriously? Are you wearing your cape to the grocery store? And how's that working out for you? I don't buy it. It's funny because over the years, people have always said to me, wow, you're really, what's the word I'm looking for? And my answer is always normal. I'm like, yeah. You're so normal. I'm like, we are normal.
Right.
So, and if I have to be known as, it's funny because I've had other witches kind of like, treat me as less than because they're like, oh, well, that's just Ellen Dugan. She's not very, da-da-da-da. And it's like, seriously? And then when they meet you, like, wow, you really know a lot of stuff. And I'm like, why did you think I did not? Oh, well, because, you're just, I said, normal? Yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of a reverse snobbishness. I've dealt with it for years. There was a lot of big festivals I wasn't even invited to up until the last year or so because I wasn't considered, pagan enough or cutting edge enough to go to the big festivals.
Oh, wow. I wonder what the turning point was. It's like, okay, she's written enough books and now a tarot deck. We can accept her.
From what I heard was people just kept asking for me to be there. The people that went to the festival just kept saying, hey, when are we going to have Ellen Dugan here? And finally someone gave in. I've literally gone to festivals where they said, well, you're kind of here on approval. If you do okay with this, maybe we'll invite you to the bigger ones. And I've literally had people say that to me.
Oh, my gosh. How insulting.
And that was just like a couple of years ago. So it wasn't like that was like 4 or 5 years ago. It just took me to the last couple of years.
Well, you won the people's hearts long before that happened, so there you go.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I think my first book of yours was Natural Witchery, and you kind of talk about that in that book, about casting a circle, I think, and your, way of doing it was not the correct way, but it worked.
Oh, I took a lot of crap for that over the years. I will never forget as long as I live. That story in that book is very, very true. I mean, I was very much looked down upon because I didn't have any formal training, and there was the whole shtick about, well, la 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 la, and who's your teacher, dear? And I'm like, me. So I mean, people sort of like, oh, so who'd you study with? I'm like, myself.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, who trained you? I did. Who initiated you? That would be me. So I mean, it's one of those things where people are very, they're always very surprised. Okay, we are officially in the parking lot.
Yay!
Joanna, we are official. Now we'll just make all people afraid of me, the woman sitting talking very animated on her cell phone in the car for now.
Yes.
So I think we're good. Let's scare some tourists. I'm down.
Right. And for the audience listening, we lost our cell phone coverage or connection, and Ellen was cool enough to get in her car and drive around until she got 5 bars on her phone. So, that's
because
how
I'm
cool.
Just that glamorous.
Yes, that's how down to earth
Doesn't
she
that sound bad? What are you looking for, man? I'm looking for 5 bars. Oh my God, not alcohol. Never mind. It's just like, yeah, that's bad.
5 bars. That's all I need.
Give me 5 bars. That's all I need.
You know what? That first book, Natural Witchery. When I was reading Practical Prosperity Magick, I was thinking it came full circle for me, at least, because you told a story in there about getting a day job and having to get a day job. And
right.
I remember reading that and being like, what?
Oh, yeah.
She's
Welcome
a famous
to the reality
author.
of being a pagan author. I mean, it's like a really nice part-time job. Or just, a fair to medium full-time job. It's not big bucks. My husband also works. I live in a ranch-style house in the burbs, and it's so cute when people come to my house for the first time. We throw a huge Halloween party every year. We'll be on our 5th year this year, and I mean, it's to the point where my adult kids, my kids are 30, 27, and 26, and literally my adult kids' friends will walk up to me and go, "What's the theme?" I mean, in February. So, but with the first time people come to the house, they're like, pull up and they go, "Oh," and I'm like, "Seriously? Were you expecting the Addams Family Mansion? We live in the burbs. It's a ranch-style house. It was built in the 50s. I'm driving a Chevy, okay?" So, let's put this in perspective here a little bit. But people have that idea that you should be, you know, living in the lap of luxury like J.K. Rowling in a Scottish castle, bless her heart. I'm like, well, wouldn't that be nice? But the reality is there's, you know, thousands of writers in the United States, and not all of them are uber rich. You know, it's only the rare few that make the crazy money. But I mean, I've met writers of any kind of genre you care to name. I've met some uber famous ones. I've gotten to know a couple of those people pretty well. But the truth is, they're just people at the end of the day, and folks have to get over that whole, "Oh, I bet they were so glamorous." Yeah, I am so glamorous that I went and upgraded my cell phone today to get an iPhone 5, hoping that maybe that would help with this interview. And they're cutting down trees in my neighborhood, and the cell phone reception is still bad because they're upgrading our towers, so I had to get in my car and drive to the parking lot of the Bass Pro Shop to get a better signal. So yeah, we are uber glamorous out here.
Yeah, well, and yet magic exists.
Yes, it does. I mean, it really does. It's one of those things where people have to stop and understand that just because you don't always see it doesn't mean it's there. What's required of a witch is to look beyond and to tune into that energy and that magic that's inherent in everything. And I think that's where the practical comes in with the magic. If you can't sense what's already out there, and if you can't tap into what you're carting around inside of you, then why are you doing this? I had an interview the other day, and they didn't understand the idea of magic. She just couldn't quite comprehend that. And they kept saying, "Well, what is magic?" And I'm like, well, magic comes from within inside yourself. You don't take it from somewhere else. You don't find it. No one passes it to you. You're carrying it around. It's inside of you.
Right.
And I know they had a hard time understanding that, but that is the truth. And if you want to access that, you need to look inside first. That's that whole as above, so below, as within, so without. And that goes back to the 7 Hermetic Principles, which is why when I tackled this book and this topic, I thought, you know what, prosperity magic is much more in-depth than most people think it is. And I discovered that for myself a couple years ago because I made a classic rookie mistake. I cast a spell when I was pissed off, stressed out, worried about money, and almost frantic. And so take a wild guess what kind of energies I manifested with that spell. A lot of chaos, a lot of anger, a lot of drama, a lot of upset, stressed out people, and a very unhappy, part-time will turn into a full-time job, but I didn't expect it to, for like 5.5 months. It was horrible. And during that experience, I kept thinking, at what point did I lose control? Where did this go horribly wrong? I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Why is my spell so bad? Why did it turn out like this? And I finally, so that got me to stop and go, all right, I need to really look at this. So I studied harder than I had in years and tried to figure out, where did my spell go wrong? And I realized I made a classic rookie mistake. I wasn't paying attention to my personal levels of energy and my personal mood and my personal vibration that I was putting out when I cast a spell. And if you cast a spell when you're angry, frustrated, and freaked out and depressed, guess what you bring into your life? So that got me to thinking. And I thought, all right, we need to dig a little deeper. And then I got to thinking, I should write a book on this. And that's how this book came to be.
Right. And I love that you take the Hermetic principles and you break them down. You get into a lot of different ways of approaching prosperity magic, through the 4 elements, through correspondences, crystals, and herbs. It's all in there. All things that we associate with magic and witchcraft is in there. And then it always just comes full circle to practicality and being down to earth. And you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves and do the work too, which I love.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's important. People have to understand. I had someone ask me on a radio show I was on the other day, they had done all this magic, but nothing was working. And I said, well, okay, what are you doing in the real world? And they got real quiet. It's like the story I always tell, and it's, I swear to God, true. I had someone walk up to me, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they got up in my face, and they were all, misattitude. And she was like, excuse me, I just have to tell you, I think your books are bogus. I think you're a horrible author. And she was on this tangent. And I stood there, and I waited her out. I thought, call me psychic. I know this is coming. And she said, I did your spell for a job, and I didn't get it. And I said, okay, let's stop and take a look at the problem. This was years ago. And I said, when you cast the spell, what did you do? So we went over that. I said, okay, so when you went on your job interview, did you enchant your resume so you would stand out more? Did you maybe wear, I don't know, green underwear, green socks? Did you carry, an herbal charm in your pocket? Did you have some crystals with you? And you know what her answer was? You mean I had to, apply for a job? Seriously. And I just stood there and looked at her, and I'm like, my eyes twitching, because I'm trying not to laugh, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, good Lord. And I was like, yeah, you have to go out and apply. But a lot of people are so busy thinking, if I just buy the most expensive green candle, if I spend all my paycheck on the right herbs and the right crystals, and I've got the right Stevie Nicks outfit, well, my magic will work. That's great, but that is not going to ensure your magic success. What's going to ensure your magic success is that you work the magic to the best of your ability in the best energetic, correct way as possible, and then you follow that up with actions in the physical world. Because if you follow it up, like you say, roll up your sleeves, if you follow up magic with real life actions, then you get a winning combination. Because if you're just sitting around casting spells and go, I just need $10,000, I just need $10,000, you do that long enough, you're probably going to get $10,000. Problem is, maybe your grandfather had to die to leave it to you. So you have to be really careful what you ask for and understand there is no such thing as a free lunch. And the other thing that I noticed and discovered when I researched it, and I discovered for myself while working through the spells in my book when I wrote it, it's called, it's all about polarity. As you give, you have to receive. If you're just doing gimme with all your magic all the time, but then you're not giving anything back after you've received, things are out of balance. There is no polarity there. You have to find, which is a walker between the worlds and which is work to be neutral. Therefore, you can't be going, give me, and not go, okay, let me give something back. Now, that doesn't mean if you busted your ass and worked overtime and you got enough money to pay your bills, doesn't mean you give all that away to someone else. What that means is you find a way to give to someone else. If that's, $5 to the Humane Society, or if that's adopting, a pet that was, on death row. If that means, spending $5 in a candy bar for some high school kid who's selling candy bars to raise money for band uniforms, whatever, find a way to give back. It can be simple things. It can be big things. Maybe it's, picking someone chicken soup who's sick. But there has to be a way for you to give back, because if you give back as you receive, guess what happens? You change your energetic vibration, and it only attracts more positive things and more success and prosperity to you. But it's all about that balance. It's all about what you're putting out there and what you're willing to give back. All of that matters, and little things make huge results, especially with prosperity magic.
Very cool. It's like gratitude in action, and gratitude is so it's so magnetic, so you can just keep that cycle going indefinitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk about that a lot in the book, about people. A lot of people have this misconception. We talk about feminine and masculine energies, and people say feminine is, that it's, whoa, sorry, big truck just pulled up behind me and honked the corner of the parking lot. Sorry about that. Oh, the glamour that is my life. Okay. People think that feminine magic is yielding, that's a yielding energy, and they're like, oh, that doesn't sound very powered. I'm like, no, stop. Feminine energy is magnetic, as in it draws to itself that which it most desires. So think about that in terms of prosperity magic. If you're tapping into your feminine energies, and everybody, male and female, has a feminine side. If you're pulling into those feminine energies, it's like, I'm going to draw in and attract what I most want. There you're using feminine energies. And on the other hand, if you want to use masculine energies with prosperity magic, then you're being projective and active and forceful. Like, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to go and I'm going to fill out this resume, and I'm going to just dazzle these people when I go to this resume, or I'm going to work this spell and things are going to work out better. If you're active and projective with your magic, that's masculine. If you're drawing in, that's magnetic and feminine. So that also ties in with those hermetic laws and the principle of gender. If you learn to use both halves of the energies that you carry, your prosperity spell will work better. But all this stuff has to all work together. And the trick is stop, go back to the basics, take a look at the principles that a lot of people have totally ignored, or that did like me for the first, 20 some odd years of my craft career. I went, oh, the hermetic principles, yeah, I don't get them, that's way over my head. And then stopped and went, all right, there has to be a way that I can figure this out and apply it to my life. There has to be a way to make them practical. That's what I tried to do in regards to prosperity magic. But the truth is, once you get the general hang of the hermetic principles, they apply to all magic.
Yeah, definitely. And I love everything that you just said about the feminine and the masculine, kind of meeting the universe halfway and showing up and getting out there, before you even get into the how-to of the book, you start off with a section called "The Witch Goes Back to Work," and you lead by example again in just sharing your personal experience, and I really appreciate that. It makes it so much more appealing and interesting and more accessible, for someone maybe that's picking up this book for the first time and or picking up a witchy book for the first time and doesn't really know, like, what all this magic stuff is about. You make it so practical and easy to understand.
Well, it's one of my big pet peeves that I've known a lot of people in the community over the years that assume if they've been doing this for a long time that people owe them. And I actually think that that's the exact opposite. My thought was ever I hear someone say, well, I'm an elder, I'm the leader of the community, someone should be supporting me. And my inner thought is you should get off your butt and get a job. And then on the other hand, when I hear people say, oh, well, it's what is the community doing for me? I've given so much. And my thought is, no, it is your privilege to help the community, and it is your privilege to be thought of as an elder, which means you're not done. You have to keep doing something. You have to keep giving back. You can't just expect, oh, I've written so many books, or oh, I've been this head of whatever thing for so many years. People owe me. No, they don't. You actually owe them. If you're going to put yourself in a position of leadership in the community, then it's up to you to stand up and act as with as much integrity and as honor as possible. And it's not easy. It's the community. And I'm sorry, the coin of our realm is gossip. So, we love our gossip. We love to talk about each other. We love to trade war stories. At the same time, there comes a point in time when you're going to stand up and be involved in the community that you have to be responsible, and you have to try to give something back. That's important. There's got to be more to us than just, oh, this is our elder. Okay, why are they our elders exactly? You know what I mean? You understand where I'm going with this?
Absolutely.
I just think it's important to be realistic and to be accessible and to be a regular person, because at the end of the day, that's going to make people understand and connect with you and what you're trying to teach a lot more than, oh yes, I'm the grand high local poobah. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody cares.
Yeah, and it's not about locking yourself in a room with a bunch of dusty books and, meditating and visualizing all day long. You're a person who, you have parties at your house, you worked, I think just briefly, if I understand correctly, in a floral shop, putting your talents to use that way. I know you're really into, like, decorating your house, kind of like the Martha Stewart of witchcraft, and you have kids, and you're active and involved in a full life. Like, you are a witch, but you're also living a full, active life.
Well, it's important. I mean, people have to meet us and understand what we are. And a couple of years ago, I was invited to do a book signing with Nora Roberts at her store, and I was very, very intimidated to walk in the store with all these romance writers. And they were lovely, and Nora was very kind and very gracious, and I've been invited back a couple of times to her store to do signings with her. And, it's a really awesome thing to be sitting there elbow to elbow with romance writers and people that write, like, historical stuff, like, locally, and all this stuff. And everybody's the same. It's like, hey, what do you write? This is cool. Everybody wants to see everybody else's books, and it's important that when people come through the line, they're like, oh, you're the witch, and you're sitting there dressed in a nice, jacket and a pair of pants and a pretty shirt, and they're looking around going, oh, you're the witch? And you're like, yes, I am. That's a very important thing for people to see that, hey, guys, we're normal. It's not all cloak and dagger. I mean, sure, we like our ritual wear, but, there comes a time and a place where we do need to stand up and be counted as just regular people. So when it becomes, oh, you're a witch, not, oh, you one of them. I mean, there should be more. We've got to get past the flash boom and be accepted for who we are.
Yeah. I don't even know if you understand how many people you've influenced and who are following in your footsteps. So now there's like a whole army of witches out there who are presenting themselves in a very accessible, down-to-earth way, and I think that you're responsible for that in part. So.
Oh, wow, I never thought about that, so okay.
Well, yeah, 16 books later, I mean, for sure. And your tarot deck that you came out with last spring, I think, it quickly became my favorite, and I use it every single day. I love that you got to incorporate that into practical prosperity magic, And one of the things that you did that just blew my mind is you totally reframed the tarot or the tower card for me, because you do a tower spell in the book using the tower card as a way to...
Right, to remove obstacles. Right.
Yes! That was crazy, because I've always been very afraid of that card. When I see it, I'm just like...
No, the tower card is actually... It's like, it shows when things have come to a head. They've come to a head, and kaboom! Now finally everything's cleared its path. The worst is over. Now it's for moms and for practical, which is like, all right, it's cleanup time. Let's get in there. Let's get this done. Because everything that was in your way has finally reached a breaking point. It's done. It's over. Now you're dealing with it. Everything you thought you knew is no longer the same. It's not a scary card. The tower card shows that things that were in your way have now been removed. Everything you thought you knew, you don't. So it basically says, stop, take a look around. When you were a little kid, you hung upside down off the couch, and your mother would walk in the room and go, what are you doing? And you would say, I'm looking at stuff. It's the same idea. You got to hang upside down and look at things from a different perspective, and then understand, okay, maybe what I thought isn't so. So this is what I've got to deal with now. How am I gonna make this work?
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for reframing the tower card, because I do have a big fear of it, and that makes so much sense. What you just explained now, the way you broke down the spell. There's a lot of spells in this book for people who like that, and they're going to be really excited when they pick up a copy, because if you apply what is in the book, you're going to have a really fun hands-on experience. So I think that's something that I know a lot of people are really going to enjoy about the book. It's not just a bunch of talking, it's doing for the reader to participate in.
Yeah, and I got to really experiment with a lot of things I had never worked with before, like golden magnetic sand and lodestones and High John the Conqueror root. All of the things that I knew were like, were like traditional with prosperity magic. So let's whip out the old Azure Green catalog and get some stuff ordered, So I thought this would be fun. First thing I discovered about golden magnetic sand is, if you have cats, don't put that on your workspace, because you will walk into your room an hour later and find little gold kitty paw prints all over your house. Because they're like, ooh, pretty, swipe, swipe, and then it's all over your house with little paw prints. So be really careful with the magnetic sand. It's super fine. It's almost like a powder. But, it's a lot of fun to work with new things. And all the spells that are in that book, I tried them out. I worked them. I talk about the spell with Ganesha when my daughter was applying to graduate school. I worked all of those spells. I wanted to see how they would work. And like I talk about in the book, things started going so well that my adult sons were like, hey, are you going to do something for us? And I was like, well, sure, are you in? They're like, yeah. And, all kinds of good things started happening for them, too. But it's important to know that once you start working this stuff, you will start to see things change. So, in a way for you to give back is to help the other members of your family if they ask you for it. You are not a magical drive-thru. You do not have to say yes to everyone who knocks on your door. As a matter of fact, if you do that, you're really encouraging what I call Darren Stevens syndrome. Don't let anybody know what you do. This will be our little secret, but hey, there's just this one thing. So don't fall into that trap either.
Good to know. You know what I was thinking too? You've written about books, about cats. You were just talking about cats. You did this tarot deck, but when I think about you, I think of you kind of as a garden witch, because you've written a couple of books on herbs and gardening, which to me is so rooted in practicality. It's like a physical, practical thing. Do you call yourself a garden witch? And I
coined that phrase about 11 years ago when I wrote my first book. I liked the idea of being a garden witch, someone who was connected to the earth, who grew their own supplies, and who worked their magic primarily, outdoors, earthy magic in the garden. To me, that held a real appeal, because when I first wrote Garden Witchery, I noticed a big lack of magical books. They would say, like, oh, yarrow, it's a 7-year herb, it's good for love spells. And they'd tell you the elemental correspondences, and you're like, and? How do you grow it? Where does it grow best? Sun, shade, and what do I use it for? And that made me crazy. And as someone who's a master gardener, I started to get thinking to myself, all right, why don't I just write the damn book myself? If I'm not finding it, I'll write the book. And so I thought, well, let's just write it. So I taught myself how to write a book and, wrote the whole thing and called up Llewellyn and double-checked on the writer's guidelines and then printed it off and My husband drove me to the post office because I was such a wreck. I was afraid that I would, maybe crash my car. And I drove to the post office and walked up to the window and mailed it off and then cried the whole way home because I was so scared to actually mail that book in. Because it's one thing to say you're writing a book. It's another thing to actually finish it and send it in. Because once you send it in, it's no longer yours. Mm-hmm. And, that for me was a really hard thing. And, but it was something I felt like I wanted to do, and that hit the ground starting. If someone would have said to me all those years ago, oh, in this many times you'll have this many books, I would have, found them a nice comfy spot to sit in and found them a really, really good emotional health care provider. But I would have never thought I would have been written this many books. It was just something that once that door was open, I had a lot to say. People responded well to it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's see what else we can do. So it just kind of, blossomed into this whole thing.
Nice. And I mean, more than a decade has passed. That's just so amazing.
Yeah, that's why I'm 50. It's just like, oh, wow.
Wow. And I mean, it doesn't look like you're slowing down anytime soon. I mean, you've got this brand new book out. You have an ebook coming out. So I think we have many more decades of Ellen Dugan awesomeness. Are you going to continue your relationship with Llewellyn? Is that how we can continue to find you?
Yeah, actually, I have another book coming out with them next year. They just had the launch meeting for it, and it is going to be called The Natural Psychic. And basically, I decided, since I talk about it in most of my books, especially in natural witchery, I got into the craft because I was trying to learn how to control the psychic abilities I had as a teenager. That's how I discovered the craft. And I thought, I would love to find, again, it came down to, why can't I find a good reference book, non-denominational? I don't need to know that Jesus and the angels are on your side. I just want a book that gives me straight information about psychic abilities and psychic experiences without all the magic, without all the religious bourgeois. You know what I mean? I'm like, somebody's got to be able to tell me straight what I want to know. And I thought, again, I guess I could write one.
Nice.
So I just finished the book. It'll come out maybe spring of 2015, but the title is now The Natural Psychic, and it is a non-denominational book on psychic abilities and psychic experiences. It will not be sold as a witchcraft book. It's actually going to be published as, as a psychic or, new age or spiritual or, that type of book. So it won't actually be a witchcraft title, but I was really proud to finally write a book that took a look at the other side of my life and the other things that I've worked with and, and dealt with for the past, however many years since I was a kid. And so that book will come out next year, and that book is strictly on psychic abilities. I was lecturing on psychic abilities when the tarot deck came out, and, people would ask me questions, and I'd say, oh, well, just do this. And people would, jump up, and everybody would grab for pens and paper and start writing stuff down. I'm like, what, y'all don't do this? Really? And I found it really surprising. And when I would lecture on the tarot deck, I would often segue into, like ethical behavior for readers and things you need to know if you're going to read for the public. And then I would talk about mediumship and why it's not, the fun game people think it is. And that would kind of usually segue into doing a demonstration of medium-style readings in the crowd. And as time went on, people just kept reacting more and more to this. And I thought, you know what? I think I really need to do a book just on psychic abilities so someone out there can get the information that I would have been desperate to have found when I was a young woman going, okay, I'm not crazy. What is this? What is it called? And how do I understand what's happening? So that was the reason I decided to write the book, and it will come out next year.
Amazing. I'm excited to read that myself, but I'm also excited to see the Ellen Dugan brand is going to blow up because all of the people that won't buy a book because it is witchy, they're going to love it. There's so many people that aren't in the witchy community that are interested in psychic development. And I think the word natural is just, it's so natural. It's so appealing. So I have a feeling that is going to be a whole magic storm of awesomeness. So I will definitely be watching to see what happens.
Well, you can thank Llewellyn for that title. My working title was Ellen Dugan's Practical Guide to the Psychic Realm, and I think that's the subtitle now.
Oh.
And when they call me back and they say, it's going to be the natural psychic, I'm like, that's perfect, because my whole thing is psychic abilities are natural. I'm like, that's great, awesome, let's run with it. And so, yeah, it's kind of one of those deals where I was like, great idea, guys. So, usually my titles stay the same, but that time and that instance, I was like, that's awesome, let's go for it. So it was kind of a happy synchronistic moment, I think, there.
Yeah, perfect. I like to end with a question But I have a question from someone else. I asked people if they have any questions for you, and everybody was so excited that I was going to be talking to you that I don't think anybody could form a coherent thought. It was just a bunch of like, amazing, I love her books, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to talk to her. And only one person, Teresa Johnson, had the wherewithal to like calm herself down and ask a question. So she wants to know, she saw that you have yellow yarrow in your garden, and and she wanted to know if you use that for medicine because she thought that that was a poisonous plant or that it was not
yarrow,
medicinal.
No. Yarrow is not poisonous. It's actually the botanical term is Achillea, and the variety that I grow is called moonshine. It's a gorgeous yellow yarrow. It's blooming now in my garden. Actually, if you look at my Facebook page, you can look at, it'll say Garden of Witchery 2014. You can see a lot of photos that are taken of the plants and of the flower beds that I have in my garden. Yarrow is not poisonous. However, I should say flat out that as a master gardener, I am not allowed to discuss medical remedies with the public because we're covered by insurance with the local university. So in other words, if I tell someone, okay, I recommend this program for your yard, or I would try this product, or I would do this thing, and they decide, oh no, she gave me bad advice, and they would sue us.
Right.
So because of that, and also medicinal herbs are not my specialty. However, yarrow is not poisonous, but I have plenty of plants in my yard that are. I have wolfsbane in my yard. I have foxglove. Morning glories are toxic. Moonflowers are mildly toxic. Hydrangea shrubs are mildly toxic. A lot of plants are. Most people don't know, but I also trust that people aren't going to go gnawing on their hydrangea bushes. So, it all comes down to, what do you want to plant and why. I didn't put foxglove in my garden until my kids were in middle school, and I could say to them, that's foxglove, they make heart medicine out of that. Don't mess around with that plant. They'd be like, okay, so it's something else I talk about a lot in my gardening books and the magical books too. If you're going to grow, ornamentals, or you're going to grow, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If you're going to grow culinary herbs, or like tomatoes, don't plant them right next to poisonous plants because, maybe a little Jimmy, if you say, oh honey, go pick mommy some mint, well, he might see those pretty purple flowers and not understand that, oh, the mint has purple flowers, well, so does foxglove. Which one can I eat? So you never plant culinary plants next to poisonous plants in a garden, especially when you have kids. It's just better to keep them very separate. So I'm big on plant safety and knowing what you have and being very careful with it. You never leave small children unattended in a garden. You always have to keep an eye out for them. And also, some people are just dumb. They'll eat anything. Well, I read somewhere. No. You never guess. You know exactly what you have planted. You don't, it's like when when I was a kid, my grandfather took me mushroom hunting. If we even touched a mushroom without his permission, oh man, it was on. There's some things you just don't guess with, and herbs are one of them. You know exactly what you have, you know exactly what it's for. When in doubt, take a nice, great big container, fill it full of nice potting soil, and plant in a pretty culinary mixed pot right on your sunny back porch or front porch. And then if you want to have your culinary right there in one spot, safe to get to, and it'll smell fantastic. And it's nice to walk out the back door and go, click, 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 you're going on my chicken. You know what I mean? That would be nice. So yeah, that's a good alternative. Or even if you have limited space and you don't have a lot of room to grow a garden.
Yeah. See, you are the garden witch. I asked you a simple question about yarrow, and then we just got all this amazing information. It was so good.
Well, yeah, my kids took me to the botanical garden. I think it was the weekend after Mother's Day. My adult sons did, and we were walking along, and they kept trying to stump me. Mom, what's that? And I knew it. And they were like, Mom, what's that? And I could tell it. And then one of my sons said, yeah, the tree with the purple leaves. That's not a Japanese name. What is it? I said, it's a plum. So he goes over and he looks at the tag. And he goes, does it say plum? I said, does it say prunus? He's like, damn it, Mom. I'm like, it's what it is. It's a plum tree. So, I mean, yeah, my kids try to stump me, but my kids grew up with a mom who was a rabid gardener, rabid being the key word. And so now my oldest son, who has his own home, he bought a house that had an established garden. And, you know, first thing he did was put in a vegetable garden. So, I mean, when he calls me, he says, yeah, the clematis, what should I do? I'm like, cut it down to the ground. He's like, oh, good, it'll come back. You know, or he's like, oh, I think I need to send out my daylilies. Should I send out my daylilies? I'm like, yeah, dude, send those out. So, I mean, you know, my kids grew up with this working knowledge of plants, and it really comes in handy for anybody. Get to know your plants. Know the trees in your neighborhood. You know, learn a little bit. If you're going to be part of an earth religion, I don't know, maybe you should make an effort to, like, grow something in the earth. I just think that would be a good thing.
Oh, yes. That's a great great tip and a bit of advice. And I guess it could be the answer to my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I always ask people, what's your tip for creating the kick-ass life of your dreams? But because you are a witch, I want to ask, what is your best tip for being a kick-ass witch in today's modern world, in a world where people might not understand what that means?
Well, it all comes down to your intention, your honor, and your integrity. Those are words, honor, integrity, that aren't thrown around a lot, and they should be. People always ask me, are you a Wiccan or are you a witch? And I say, no, I'm a witch. And they just kind of look at me, and I'm like, no, let me explain to you. I work to be neutral. I don't swing back and forth, from white fluffy sparkles to, dark hue ominous music here, energies. I'm neutral. I stay in the middle. And with being neutral means you have to be responsible, just like you hear witches and Wiccans say all the time. We're not forgiven. We don't get to screw up in this lifetime and go, oh, I believe, I'm forgiven. We have to be responsible for what we do. Well, being a witch means when you're being responsible, you're walking between the worlds. You're neutral. You're in that middle place. And if you do the best you can and practice your craft and live your life with as much honor and integrity as you possibly can, you will not go wrong. And that, in my opinion, is how you become a kick-ass practitioner, whether you consider yourself a magician or whether you consider yourself a witch or a Wiccan. But if you are working the best you can with honor and integrity, you can't go wrong. That way you'll be raising good kids that'll go off and become responsible adults. I mean, you'll be training people and working with people in your coven that are going to, go off and go forward, and they're going to teach those good lessons that you taught them to someone else. But it all comes down to honor and integrity and the way you live and the way you treat other people. If you can do that, you will be a kick-ass witch, in my opinion.
Yes, and you are one of the most kick-ass witches I have ever had the pleasure to get to talk with. So thank you so much for driving your car around and looking for the 5 bars and meeting me here today.
Fun.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
You're welcome.
Yay. Have a beautiful day. Much love. Peace.
Okay, thanks, Joanna.